Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Wow, I hit 10,000 subscribers yesterday. I'm going to do a celebration of those 10,000 subscribers with the Wyoming encounter from William. I'll hopefully have that out tomorrow. Today I'm going to do some Q&A and a subscriber encounter. Before we get into today's upload, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. All of those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that really don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. Now, guys, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? We'll start today with some Q&A from William. Good Bones asked, how many dogman or werewolves near Norwood, Massachusetts? Tell me your qualifications, please. Within 40 miles of city center, there are 8 of each, with most being around Ellis Pond and Eden Park. Let me know what your qualifications are. We have a list, and I have listed them in one of the earlier episodes, if you care to look or listen to them, and I'll tell you if you have what it takes. Ava Rosen asks, how many are in Claiborne, Texas? I've been to Claiborne, Texas before, so let's see. Within 26 miles of the city center, there are 102 dogman, 89 werewolf, most of which are at Lake Pat, Claiborne. It's April 4th, 2020, and I just dispatched every agent I have and every recruit left in Virginia down there, now at 3,500 hours. They have to be thinned out some, and this means today. Vincent Richardson asked, William, what do the pups look like of both werewolf and dogman? When they were released, do they have an understanding of the conditions of their release? Also, is there any kind of hierarchy in the dogman or werewolf? The werewolves look almost like a human baby, only longer and covered in fur is the best description of one. As for the dogman, they also are a good amount larger than the normal big breed of dog pups. Would be the difference being the rear legs are longer and look deformed. Yes, they have a full understanding of the reason that they are being released back into the wild. They have been chipped and gone through a mind control that should keep them under control for a very long amount of time. If so, that's something that comes with age and being in the wilds for a long period of time, and they have developed it with time and a trial and error and working through the system together. Jonathan Wright asks, William, there's a man in Oklahoma still very much in need. Jeff from Bill, will you please forward me Jonathan's email so I can read it firsthand, please, as Jonathan believes this could be another Skinwalker Ranch situation. Jonathan, Bill did answer me, and he's checking things out. He doesn't really see a whole lot of resemblance to Skinwalker Ranch. The only thing he can see is the children possibly being at risk. I'll be communicating with you via email. Scott S. asks, this is your answer to your question. For some reason, William did not include the question, so you will know exactly what he's talking about. I picked the location, San Marcos, Texas. Hope I got fairly close. We're doing 28-mile radius from the center of town, and I'm going to get some help to your area. Also, Texas is covered up right now. Dogman, right now there are 90 outside of Willow Creek. Look like they are using the railroad line moving northwest to southeast. And your werewolf number is 71, mostly being northeast of the airport. Know where I am going just as soon as I finish. Going to be a long week, and good thing I get paid by the kill now. Drex Ferguson asks, do you know if the government or any of its agencies use psychics or clairvoyants to aid in any of their programs? The answer is yes. I know in the paranormal aspects of research that they do for a certain. That is the only one I am aware of that does. Shane Castello asked, I spoke with him for 6 hours the other night and brought this up to him about recording him. When and after we finished all of the videos and comments that I read to him, he took my phone and held it to his ear, and I said, you want to talk to them? And he replied, maybe, so we will have to see where it leads. That's not something I want to push. I could get in a bad way fast, and people don't realize how fast that could turn bad for me being in there with him. I'm assuming that that question was something to do with Sebastian and asking what he thought of the comments and questions. Super Saiyan Bibu asked, what is the genesis of the Dogman werewolf Bigfoot? Where do they come from? What are their origins? Are they Nephilim or aliens or demons? They were all created by God. He created everything, and he alone did so. I am sure at one time these creatures were good, and something happened to make them bad like they are today. Just not sure what that something was. John Sumner asks, William, how much credibility do you give shows like These Woods Are Haunted, supposed real people telling their stories? Hey John, I guess you could find some truth in any stories you listen to. What I have learned over the years by interviewing people is to listen to that question, ask in a number of ways, and this will lead you to the truth. If this person's story stays the same from the beginning and the questions have been asked a different way and answered the same way every time, you know they're telling the truth. Archangel 03 asks, I am curious as to how many there are in Lee County, Virginia area. Well, I have no way of tracking Bigfoot as we never tagged any, as the breeding program failed. As for Dogman, there are 54 in your county. As for the werewolf, 45. Zach Guess asked, can us humans and werewolves and Dogman get along? Is there any way to be at peace with one another and possibly even be able to communicate? Zach, good question. Humans can communicate with werewolves. It's just going to be a matter of what type of mood the creature is in. If he's in an aggressive mood and you are not armed with a big enough weapon, you need to duck your head and be submissive towards him and hope he'll lose interest in you. I've been trying to communicate with one in captivity, and he hates me as much as he does the first day we met. Vincent Richardson asked about Sebastian. Did he know my dad? He was captured in 1952 in Yuma, Louisiana. My dad's most famous case was in the LBL, where the family was killed in their camping trailer. Yes, Sebastian knew my dad. Sure did. They were not as close as him and I are, though. Michael Knight asked if anything comes up in the area of Preston Hollow, New York. Okay, Michael, here you go. I'm looking at an area of 28 miles from the center of Preston Hollow. You have 26 Dogman and 18 very large werewolves prowling all around Preston Hollow Park. The Dogman are scattered, but the werewolves are all around that park. A Jar of Pickles asks, could any earthly animal kill a Dogman? Also, has your work increased your faith in God? Pickles, I've seen a grizzly wipe the floor with a Dogman. He was injured, but he won that fight. Then, with a werewolf, I killed the werewolf to keep it from killing the grizzly. And the Bigfoot snapped its neck before I could even raise my rifle. As far as my faith in God, it's always been strong and will remain this way till something happens to me or I live out my time. I'm not scared of death. I know where I will go. Here's a few more Q&A. Time to hunt. Everyone's in the field somewhere, very unusual, going to have to be very careful. And they are all in packs, going to have to hunt some of these large groups solo. I am the only one capable of this. Sure would like to help Doc and the Pennsylvania State Trooper. But I need to know if Doc is still around the silos. Today's second part of the upload is a subscriber encounter. I had weird experiences in Louisiana while riding horses. This was in the 70s when parents let you take off all day. I was 14 at the time. I've always had a predator wolf-like spirit and loved the solitude of the woods and was never scared of anything. Loved the howls wolves made. It sang to my soul. Many times down there my horses would refuse to go down trails we always traveled, no matter how crafty I thought I was. This is where I believe he watched me and attached himself to me. We moved from there to Arkansas in the woods. I was 18 at the time. My parents let me make a bedroom in the windowed basement. There were bamboo rolled down shutters for the windows, but I never shut them. I loved looking out of them at night and hearing the wolf howls. I also loved the sun coming up and waking me up. One night I saw a figure that stood 6 feet high holding one of the trees, but its back was to me, and it was bent oddly. My sister had to make a room down there, and she woke up screaming that night. The figure turned a little, then disappeared, running down the cliffside. She moved back upstairs, but my dad made me close the shutters every night, so I never saw it again. When I got a good job, I found a farmhouse that my daughter and I moved into. It had a wood-burning stove. When I would go out to get wood, I would feel like I was being watched. I moved to town closer to my grandparents because my grandfather was sick. I never felt odd again till I moved to Iowa. I lived in a farmhouse where I was taught how to shoot a rifle. I could hit a dime-sized color of an egg in the grass. I always got a kill with my Remington 22 lever action when I went hunting. I knew that I was being watched when practicing on rotten eggs, but that wolf spirit now had teeth and was invisible. One day I went hunting with my stepfather when I found wolf tracks bigger than my stepfather's hands in the mud hole that made the deer tracks beside them look like they were fawns. I asked him how was there only 2 tracks, as if the wolf walked upright. He told me not to worry about it because the wolf walked in its same track, but there weren't any smudges of toes or nails. We walked on, and I was told to go up the hill and flush turkeys to them, my stepfather and his friend. I started walking up the hill, and then I noticed no noise in the forest. I stopped, remembering the wolf tracks. I started looking around, pulling my rifle off my shoulder, chambering around, and taking the safety off. This is when I noticed the hair on the back of my neck and arms start standing straight up. I put my rifle on my hip, and that spirit came out. I started creeping up the hill, moving leaves out of the way before my foot was set down. I moved a few steps, then looked and listened. The hunted became the hunter. I also watched the trees, knowing there were cougars in this area. I came to the top to find 5 coy dog tails in the bush shaking. I looked in every direction they faced. I could see dark shadows that didn't seem to be a target, like they melded into the ground. The dogs couldn't move, no matter how I tried to get them to move. I would later find out why. I said a prayer for them and walked away crying for them. I met up with my stepfather and his friend and told them we had to go. They didn't believe what I told them, but we left. This Dogman is the one attached to me. I was around 22 then, but I'm 58 now. I have to stop now. This is as far as I can tell my story without breaking my word and not cause me problems. I still live in Iowa. Today's third part of the upload. A military contractor recalls a Bigfoot incident that occurred at Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington. In 2011, I was working at the Lewis McChord military base located south of Tacoma, Washington. I was employed at a public works and assigned to the environmental department. I was part of a group conducting a study in the southern section of the base. There were several soldiers attached to a group of security. We had been out all day in the field and were getting ready to head back to the lab. About 5:30, we heard a distress call on the radio from one of the security attachments located north of our location. Then we heard gunshots coming from the same direction. The best I can describe this situation is that all hell broke loose. The civilians were hustled out of the area immediately. When we arrived at the lab, we were told by the command that our department would be non-active until further notice. The next day I received a phone call at home from a lady I worked with. She was wondering if I had heard anything. I told her that no one contacted me, but was having dinner later with friends who still worked at the base. She seemed very concerned because no one was answering calls at the base. That evening I got together with friends who worked in the other public works department at the base. At that time, there was no official information available, but there were a lot of rumors floating around. The most prevalent rumor was that one of the security details went off his rocker and started shooting at personnel. We were all called back to work about a week later. We each were given written statement that, despite the rumors, the incidents were false alarm, and that no one had discharged their firearm. We all rolled our eyes. Each of us had heard the gunshots and realized that the situation was more serious than what the military was stating. A month or so later, I was collecting samples in the field and was accompanied by 2 soldiers for security. We were back in the general area of this mysterious incident. One of the soldiers mentioned that all of the security people who were on duty that particular day were no longer with that division, which I thought was very odd. I asked if he had heard anything about the incident. With a straight face, he said that something was shot after it scared a group of soldiers. I mentioned that I thought soldiers were not authorized to shoot wildlife. Both the soldiers snickered and agreed with my comment. I asked, what was it? They explained that they never told what that something was, but there had been an unconfirmed sighting of a Sasquatch and other unknown man-like creatures in and around that base. This information didn't really surprise me since I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and was very well aware of the legend. This is about all I can tell you. I no longer work at Lewis McChord, but still have several friends that do. I will say that I am more mindful of the cryptid world, especially here in the Pacific Northwest. I believe that the government and military are very familiar with these creatures, and sudden security boosts during the incident, and then the fact that the biological and medical departments on the base were put on hiatus, leads me to believe that the military was in possession of one of these creatures. I have no confirmation of this, but my gut feeling indicates that's what happened. Wow, there's some good encounters right there. I love doing William's Q&A, and I love sharing subscriber encounters. There's nothing better. I truly do look forward to sharing these with you every day. I wanted to get the Wyoming incident out, but it's about an hour long, and I've had a pounding headache all day. I just briefly was able to get in and record, still with a mild headache, but not bad. Definitely some creepy encounters. If you're wondering what the end part of the encounter 2 is, the coyotes were dead. And that's my assumption. Very brief email, and I wanted to share it with you guys because it just struck a chord with me. I thought it was very interesting and wanted to share it. Tomorrow I'm going to work on that Wyoming incident for you guys. I hope that you guys will enjoy it. I know I've read it. I actually did record it. Hated how I sounded and deleted it a couple days ago, or 6 days ago to be exact. And I don't know. With that, I hope everyone is safe and healthy. And until tomorrow, I'm going to bid you farewell. Thanks, guys.